first shot at the 40 hit the balloon.
Hello, welcome back to the show. Today we are going to build our new arrows, Easton Axis 5mm, with iron wheel components and a 4-fletching system with the max stealth vanes. I have never used the max stealth vanes before, so I'm excited to do so. And today I'm going to be explaining a little bit about the stuff I'm using. First thing here, we have an arrow spinner. As you see, the arrow spinner is just that. It spins the arrow. Well, it does more than that. It tells if one side's wobbly and one side's not. Okay? And so that way you can better cut the arrow on which end you need. Unfortunately, I don't have an arrow cutter, an arrow saw at this time. These are carbon arrows, and for an arrow saw, it's actually safer to cut in a well-ventilated area, which here in Hawaii, I don't have. I live in a small apartment, so that's kind of hard to have. But and also with the arrow spinner, a lot of people will say you need a better one than this because it's lopsided. Well, this, if you're doing budget builds, this is fine. It's a little piece of plastic, $15, 4 bearings go on either end, 2 on each end, with 2 washers on either end. So that way the arrow sits in there and it'll spin. Alright? Don't need to spend a lot of money on these things. AE Max Glue. A lot of people I've talked to said they use super glue. Well, super glue, believe it or not, doesn't bond to carbon very well. So AAE Max Glue. You need your nocks. I removed my nocks because we're going to be pushing in some components, and it's always best to remove the nocks. I put them in this bag, which my field points came in, so I can always have my nocks handy and know where they're at. Q-tips. Best thing to clean the arrows with, cleaning all the debris out of the inside, is Q-tips. Silver Sharpie. You will see later why. Our sanding block. This one here helps square up the arrows. As you see, I have used it. I have a picture here. I have used it. This thing gets a lot of wear and tear. Primer pin. Best thing in the world. I've tried gluing fletchings without primer pin and they fell straight off. Primer pin helps the glue stick better. Since we will be using some rubbing alcohol with Q-tips and some epoxy, I use some old medicine cups. These old medicine cups work very well for stuff that we're doing. Your arrow wraps, your fletchings, toothpicks. Best thing in the world to mix the epoxy. A lot of people that I've talked to said use an arrow mat. Arrow mats are very good. They're about $20. I use a $5 mouse pad from Walmart. Same thing. Works just as well. Okay. And then your grain scale. When building your arrows, you want all your arrows to weigh pretty much the same thing. My arrows weigh 511 grains. How I know that? The grain scale. Alright, I will be taking pictures with my phone of the weights of these things so that way you can see, but your grain scales come with a arrow holder or a calibration block, whatever you want to call it. I call it an arrow holder because that's what it's used for with me. Turn on your grain scale. Make sure you zero it out so that way you get most accurate measurements. Take your arrow shaft. This one weighs pretty much to 259. For you guys, so that way you can see better. We'll weigh every one of our shafts. We have 6 shafts, and I'll see you right in a minute. Welcome back. Now, I just got done weighing my arrow shafts. Now I'm going to be weighing my fletchings. I'm doing a 4 fletching arrow, so I'm going to be weighing 2. Each arrow will be getting 2 orange fletchings and 2 black fletchings. So I'm going to start weighing them. And as soon as I get done, I'll weigh out all that and get it all separated. And I'll see you here in just a minute. Now, next thing I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be weighing my front end components. Well, I call them front end components. Some people call them the inserts. And here's the deal. The arrow shafts come with this little tiny insert here. And let me get this zoomed in here for you. Alright, this little tiny insert, and this thing weighs roughly about 25 grains, or 15 grains rather. About 15 grains, I think. I'm going to do a comparison and I'll show you. And this one is our new insert. It weighs 25 grains. With this insert, I also have the sleeve that goes with it, and I'll show you that here right quick. And good thing about these components, they come in these nice little bags. And it's really nice. They're kind of like a felt bag. Really, really nice. Alright, here's the sleeve. The sleeve weighs 25 grains as well. So you got your insert. Let me grab one of these shafts here and I'll show you. Your insert goes inside here. The sleeve goes right on top of the insert, right like this. And there you go. But it's going to sit deeper in there. I'm not going to push it all the way in because I have nothing attached to it. Let me get a tip here and a field point here and I'll show you this. Alright, so I got a field point. I'm going to screw this in here. And this is actually how we're going to be doing it. We're going to take some AE epoxy, put inside here, push that on. Then we're going to put some AE epoxy onto the insert here and slowly push this in. Then once we get it in, we're going to remove the field tip and take it off, clean it up, and clean the inside with alcohol again, so that way everything sits real good. You can remove the tip or what have you, switch out the tips if need be. Now, a lot of people have said that they use epoxy and epoxy in the tip as well. Well, that's bad because of the fact you're going to be practicing with these arrows in a hunting situation, and you're going to sit there and do shooting these field tips. Well, how are you going to switch out on your arrows that you've been practicing with and using to go hunting and put broadheads on it? Well, you can't if you glue in your insert. That's why the way I'm doing it, and I'm going to walk you through it step by step, is actually very good. So, we got our grain scale. It turned off on us. Give me a second. Alright, there we go. Now put the block back on there. Zero it out. We're going to weigh the tip first. 100 grain tip. Your insert, new insert. New insert is 74.7, 75 grains. About right. Now, let me do a comparison. An old insert. Old insert is 16.5 grains. Now, the sleeve weighs 25 grains. So, now I know you're sitting there thinking, oh, well, that's not very heavy. It is actually when you're thinking of velocities and everything with your bow. Let me put this back on here. Okay, so, and I'm going to show you exactly how much this weighs. I got to try to get it as even as possible. Let me try that. Okay, this one weighs 512 grains. Oh my goodness. So, 512 grains. My old arrows weighed 400 grains. Now, imagine you're going out there shooting at the target, and you're shooting a bow on average goes 250 to 260 feet per second, FPS. FPS stands for feet per second. Now, I know this comes down to a lot of physics or what have you with your my clock's going off here. Hold on a second. Okay, so sorry about that. I actually have this vintage train clock, and it's actually really nice. I love it. Had it for about, I'd say, 30 years. But anyway, so as I was saying, the arrows are calculated in as far as speed, feet per second, or FPS. And you're going to see a lot of people talking about, oh, my arrow shoots 270 FPS. Well, he's saying shoots 270 feet per second. My bow shoots right around 270 to 280 feet per second right now. I shoot a 65-pound Matthews VXR 28-inch riser. So my 27-inch arrow shooting, my old one shot 270 roughish feet per second, which when we go out there and test these arrows, next week we're actually going to be doing a chrono video, and we're going to show these arrows, my old arrows, my son's arrows, everything, and show you exactly how fast they shoot. But with this, imagine the old ones being, this is a 340 spine. My old ones are 340 spine at 400 grains. This is 340 spine at 512 grains. So I'm going to be shooting about 100 grain heavier arrow. And so you're shooting it, you're having to lob it up a little higher, and then it's falling back down. Well, a heavier arrow going up is going to slow down a little bit more, and I'll probably lose, I'm estimating here, about 10 feet per second. So I'll probably go back down to a 260-ish range, which that's fine. That's where I want to be. And when you're building arrows, you want to make note where you want to be as far as speed, where you're wanting to be as far as your weight of your arrows. So with that said, let's get to the rest of this. Now, I said silver Sharpie. Well, with the silver Sharpie, we're going to take it and draw a circle around the tip and the knock end of the arrow. And this is so we can square it up using our squaring block or sanding stone, whatever you want to call it. I call it a squaring block. There's better ones out there. I just don't have a better one at this time. I plan on getting a better one eventually, but haven't found one in the that is over here in Hawaii yet. I am looking for a better one. And the reason I went with new arrows is because I actually ran out of my old ones. It's hard when you're shooting and they put a, what is it called, hot melt into the arrow, which is basically a hot glue, and they're putting that into the arrow to glue in the insert. Well, here in Hawaii, it may be 80 something degrees outside for us, but imagine the 80 something degrees beaten down on a black arrow shaft that's heating up the arrow shaft, heating up that glue, and as you're pulling the arrow out of the target, the insert's coming with it. So I said, you know, since I have to get new arrows or new inserts anyways, everybody's telling me that Easton Axis is one of the best arrows out there. I've been looking for a long time for Easton Axis arrows that were budget friendly, and I finally found some, and I said, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and get these. And that's why I said, you know, I'll use epoxy to glue them in, and that way everything will be firm and won't come out as easily. Well, that said, that firmness and won't come out as easily is also a bunch of harder work that you're going to have to do to get the arrow built correctly. And so I also wanted to do a video of a full build, to insert everything, to show how it's done. A lot of people have asked me who are new to archery or don't know very much about it, what it is entailing in building an arrow. And so that's why I want to do this. I want to show what it entails. And there's a person out there who has this motto, ABT, always be tinkering. And you know, he says it right, and he's actually very correct on it. Before I continue with that, what we're doing now is we're putting the arrow on our sanding block, our squaring block. Let me zoom in here for you. Oh. Be right back and get... Okay, so we got finished with squaring off our arrows, and now what I'm going to be doing is measuring the placement of the wrap. That way I know exactly where to place it and be able to put that on there before I put my front end component on there. Alright, so good thing about the silver Sharpie, we take the silver Sharpie and mark where that arrow wrap goes. And we do that on the knock end because that's where the arrow is going to be going. Or the arrow wrap, rather. So we got done with that. Now we're going to wrap our arrows, and we do this before we put our front end components in it because it's easier that way. We want to make life easier, not harder. I always like stars forward on my arrow wraps because when I was in the military they taught me on the flag stars always go forward, and so it stuck with me. Kind of makes sense because I want my stripes to be following the stars like they're shooting stars. And so this is what the mat is for, the mouse pad. We put our wraps on there and are able to now we are going to be putting in our inserts, and then we gotta let those set for 24 hours before we fletch our arrows. And I like doing it even before I put my nocks on, letting it set. So that way I know for a fact that these things will not come out and that the glue has properly set. I call it glue, but it's really epoxy resin, and epoxy is very slow curing. It doesn't take much to ruin it, and it doesn't take much to make it set really good. Take your arrow, take your Q-tip, and just clean the inside. I like cleaning pretty deep in there because you never know when you might need a little bit more. One side done, now do the other side. And it might take one Q-tip per arrow, per shaft. And people say, you don't have to do the knock side. Well, that's just me. I like my stuff clean. One done, I'm going to set it the other way so that way I know it's done. And alcohol dries really fast, so you don't have to use a lot. You don't even have to go back in there and dry it afterwards. So, get this done, and then I'll see you back here in just a second. Okay, welcome back. Now I'm going to be mixing up the resin and going to start putting the inserts in. So I like this one. It comes with a syringe-like thing, and you drip out the exact measurements of what you're needing. So we got that dripped out. Now we take our Q-tip and mix that in. Mix it until it all looks the same color, of like a gold color. Now, take our arrow, make sure it's on the front end. Take our sleeve, got a little bit on the tip here, and wipe that in. One thing I forgot to grab was a wipe to wipe this the excess off. So let me grab that here right quick and I'll be right back. Okay, so I got my wipes now, and I went ahead and screwed the tip into the insert here. With that, you don't want to tighten it all the way down. You just want it snug enough to where it's easy to unscrew and pull out. Now, got that just right. I believe it's just right. Take some resin on your Q-tip and wipe that on about like this here. That might be a little much, but that's okay. I'm going to teach you how to clean up the excess without it getting everywhere. Take it and push it in. Slowly push it in. It's going to snag a little bit, but that's okay. Then push it in. Now, with it right there pushed in, you want to start unscrewing it. Look in there, make sure it looks about right. Okay, that looks about right. I had a little bit on my hands. That's why I was trying not to touch the arrow there. We take our Clorox wipe. We use Clorox wipe to wipe off this resin off the tip, and that way you stay pretty good. Then take it, wrap it around the tip there, make sure it's not on the tip, place that to the side, take a Q-tip with some alcohol on it. Oh, drat, did all that go away? Yeah, it did. But take one with not that much, just wet enough, and wipe inside here to get that excess off the sidewalls of your shaft. And that way you have a good arrow. You get a little bit more alcohol, just some, not much. Doesn't take a lot to do these. Then we set it back down. Do the next one. Do this until all your shafts are done.